All right. You have an assignment which is due on the 9th, yes, of September next month. So you have about 2 weeks to do this assignment. You need to answer all the questions. All the questions have to be answered. The assignments also need to be referenced. So you need to reference. All right. So you need to do proper referencing. All the referencing guides are provided for you in the general section of Learn. On your Learn, sorry. It's provided. Please check. We use the footnotes here. On the footnotes, you use the Chicago manual style of referencing. So we use Chicago style of referencing when we are referencing. Okay, so it's have to be referenced. Have to be also have to be submitted on time. In time, English. So ensure that you start by doing it now. If you are not clear, ask from the tutors. They will surely assist you. You can email them, and you can also through the class reps send me questions if you have any questions. I hope you guys are attending tutorials as directed. I've heard that there has been a low turnout in the tutorials. I'm recording this. This is Wednesday today. You still have a tutorial to attend today, tomorrow, and also on Friday. Please make sure that you attend your tutorials. Okay. Question 1 is very clear. Question 1 is very clear. It says, do you regard former President Jacob Zuma as a martyr or a constitutional delinquent? Okay. Are you considering Jacob Zuma as a scapegoat, or as a person who's being sacrificed, or a person who's a delinquent, or a person who's a lawbreaker who have broken the law? Remember that the case of Jacob Zuma, as we did discuss it sometime. Remember the case of Jacob Zuma, that is, it was found by the constitutional law as having contravened certain laws. It's a popular case. You can read about. You can Google it about it on Google. So he was released on medical parole. Remember, he was released on medical parole, and remember the upheavals and the unrest which happened in July 2021, if I'm not mistaken. When he was arrested, there was havoc, chaos all over the country, the looting and all that. So he was released on the medical parole, and after that, the constitutional courts, after the DA and other parties launched an appeal against the decision of the Department of Corrections. Okay, so it was in, I think, 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago. The Constitutional Court ordered that former President Jacob Zuma should go back to jail. Okay, he did go back to jail just to sign off because a remission for low risk prisoners has been granted by the president. So he fell part of those low risk prisoners who received remission, not parole, but remission from the president. So he's a free man now. So this question relates to that. There is a, so we have to write here 20 lines. You have to read that file on week 1. It's there. Please search for it, read it, because it is your main reference. So it's a background in information. So you just need to briefly write 20 lines. Please do not write, if a question asks you to write 20 lines, please do not write less than 15 lines. And please write a maximum of 25 lines. Do not write more than 25 lines. Please also adhere to those instructions. Please adhere to those instructions. Okay, so here you are in those 20 lines, you are outlining briefly the reason why former president was sentenced to 15 years imprisonment, number 1, and number 2, using or utilizing supporting evidence. You are trying to make an argument of whether you believe this was the correct legal decision to incarcerate former President Zuma, or whether Zuma is a victim of political considerations. So we have 3 questions that you need to answer briefly here. You need to answer those 3 questions briefly. As I've said, you are outlining why the president was sentenced to 15 years, and so you are using some evidence from that scripts that you've been given, or that document there on your land. Number 2, you are making a clear argument of whether you believe this the sentence was a correct legal decision to imprison Jacob Zuma to 15 years incarceration. Okay, number 3, you consider whether Jacob Zuma was or is a victim, is a material of political consideration. That is your first question. That is very clear. And your question 2, it's also 20 lines, contributing to 12.5 marks of your assignment. It says there's in a parliamentary panel under the leadership of former South African President Kgalema Motlanthe, declared the 1994 Ingonyama Trust Acts unconstitutional, and recommended that it either be repealed or amended. Be repealed, scratched out as a whole, or should be amended. All right. So in this also 20 lines, what you are doing here, you are stating whether you agree with the statement, whether you believe that the trial or the trust should remain as it is. Okay. So in doing this, we have to go. There's also an article on your land. You can also go online. And search Ingonyama Trust, the acts, its duties, its subsections, how it benefits the people, and so that you can support your answer to whether you want this, whether it is correct that the act should be repealed or amended. So this is upon your subjective considerations. So you can Google some stuff to have a better understanding about the Ingonyama Trust Acts. Remember recently His Majesty King Misuzulu Kazwelithini announced the Ingonyama Trust Board. There's a board which governs the whole trust. He did announce the members and also the chairperson. And remember, there has been a lot of controversy between King Mrs. Zulu and his traditional prime minister, which is Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi, over they were as loggerheads. Their argument was about the chairperson of Ingonyama Trust. Remember previously, when King Zwelithini Kabheka Zulu was still in power, the chairperson of the board was Judge Jerome Ngwenya, and now it's Inkosi Mzimela now, was chosen by Queen Mrs. Zulu. So there has been that what we will call a misunderstanding over the choice of the Inkosi Mzimela as the chairperson of the board, because Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi was saying that they have discussed the issue that Judge Jerome Ngwenya should continue, because the new board chair does not have credentials to lead the board. Remember that this Ingonyama Trust, the king is the sole trustee for it, and there's this board. There's the board, Ingonyama Trust Board, which governs all the issues of Ingonyama Trust. All right. So try to answer that in simple terms, and be brief when you are discussing it. Okay. And the third question relates to, it says that drawing on the articles by Hay and Lindbergh, okay, Douglas Hay and Peter Lindbergh, go and read those articles. Okay. So when you draw on these two articles, explain the rise in crime and criminality in England. So this is 25 marks. It's 800 words. Do not exceed 850 words, and do not be lesser than 700 words. Okay, please. So now you have to explain the rise in crime and criminality in England during the 17th and 18th centuries. Number one, that's what you are discussing, the rise in crime and criminality in England. That is your number one. Number two, you have to explain the increase in the number of offenses punishable by death. That is where you discuss the those laws or the crimes which are listed under the bloody codes. Okay. And number three, what you need to do there is to explain the decline in the actual numbers of persons which were hanged between 1688 and 1815. So there are reasons written in your notes, on your notes. They are there on why there was a decline in the people on people who were being hanged. So we have to discuss whether the in this part you discuss the effectiveness of the bloody codes. Okay, we've discussed a lot about this. Please go through your notes again. I can't go over it again and again. We have been doing it. Okay, and another portion which we have to answer here, which means there are 4 parts here. It's a 4-part question. It says that if people were not hanged, what function, according to Hay, did the law play under the circumstances? Okay, so now, what did the law do if people were not hanged? Okay, so now this is where you start to write about the prison system. Okay, where they were jailed, the gallows. Just mentioned the prison system, but go to read the summaries that I've given you about on Douglas Hay. Okay. So there is a guide that you've been given, which says that you should begin by discussing the fact that the Industrial Revolution led to urbanization and the increase in crime. People moved, very clear, we've been discussing it. People moved from the countryside into the urban areas. Okay, as the England started to become industrialized, so people sought for work in urban areas. Okay, they sought for work in urban areas, so there was a division of classes in the urban areas: the bourgeois, those who were living in the west of England and the east of England. People started to steal. Those who were working in the sugar producing factories, some of them will be caught with the sugar on the pockets. People were stealing. We're doing a lot of stealing. People started to become more richer. Those who own the businesses, those who own the farms. So for the poor, they were stealing, and also you have to list. There you can also mention the types of criminals which existed by this time: the highwaymen. There were a lot of criminal activities and types of crimes. They are mentioned there on your land. Okay. So these laws were passed to protect these properties by these people. So property will be your house, your business area. If it's a farm or a factory, it could be your vehicle. The people started to own vehicles, started to own buildings in the city, and so forth. So property differed. Property also could also be a person. Okay, so if you are working for someone else, you are a property of this person. Although by this time slavery was not officialized, but the signs were there. All right. And question 4. Now it says that discuss the two historically. Okay, let me not put it like that. Let me put it like a farm boy from the rural areas. Discuss the two historically specific approaches to punishment that Foucault outlines in his book, which is called Discipline and Punish. All right. In Foucault's view, was the move away from physical punishment more human? Okay, explain your response. Okay, for this question now, what you need to do is to explain the arguments by Foucault, okay, which says that society moved from physically punishing the people, which has the death penalty, the hangings, which was torture, to institutionalizing them in prisons, and that this was not the order to treat prisoners more humanly. Okay, it was not an order to treat the prisoners more humanly, but it was but that's the effect was the same or even worse for prisoners, as they were worked upon mentally to modify their behavior. So here you are discussing the arguments which were or are put by Ufoko on his book. Okay, I've mentioned on the one of the videos that I've made when I was analyzing Foucault on his stance on the criminal justice system, from moving away from the torturing of people to the prison system, where he says that the new system now was a rehabilitation a system which aimed at correcting the behavior or punishing the soul of a person as the person was being controlled. Okay, the body was being controlled, and also the soul was being controlled. He also says that the public hangings were more of a public domain, on a public domain. People were hanged in public, but the soul is private. It's private when you dispossess a person freedom. You are punishing the soul. Okay, so revolve your discussion around that. Check the summary of Foucault. Also read about Damiens, who was the last person to be publicly executed in France in 1857 in March. Okay, also read about that. I need all of that when you are discussing. Okay, because this is for 25 marks, so it's 800 words. Again, in this question, question 4, do not write more than 850 lines, and do not write less than 700 words. You are writing an assignment here. Please reference. Okay, question 5. It says that the study of convicts Australia is a study of the creation of self-sustaining settlements, quintessentially involving work and labor that was intended to be retributive and reformative, but also economically productive. Okay, in a discussion of the origins of transportation and convicts' work and life in 19th century Australia, explain clearly what Roberts meant. Okay, so now you are discussing another form of another penal system of in England, whereby those who were found guilty of some crimes were transported into the newly found colonies of Britain. Okay, one of these colonies was Australia. That's why today in Australia they speak English. Okay, they were Australia and New Zealand. They were colonized also by Britain. Okay, there's a movie that we should, but I'll send you an email that you guys should watch of the origins of Australia. I don't know if any of you still remembers it. I can check. Let me quickly check here the name of that film, so that you guys can watch it. I think it's if I'm not mistaken, it's Rapid Proof Fence. Okay, I think if I'm not mistaken at all, It's Rabbit Proof Fence. Yes, the name of that movie is Rabbit Proof Fence. Please watch it in your own time so that you can have an understanding of the transportation to Australia. Okay, so here in this very short essay, you are discussing why the system of transportation was started, how it's operated, and what the convicts had to do in Australia, how they treated, and why the system eventually ended. Okay, so go and read the notes on the transportation into Australia, on who was, because this was not only the prisoners who were transported to work the fields of Australia. Remember that the Australia was a newfound colony of Britain, so they needed trusted labor in Australia, people who cannot run away, because locals have had the tendency of running away like in any other country. Okay, so now you are analyzing what this David Andrew Roberts says by this statement when he says this: the study of convicts Australia is a study of creation of self-sustaining settlements. Self-sustaining settlements. Those were the colonies. Okay, those were the colonies, quintessentially involving the work and labor that was intended to be retributive and reformative. Okay, it was going to be retributive and reformative to the prisoners. Okay, remember that hangings and the torture of the body has been ended. So there was no enough presence, as there were a lot of criminals and criminal activities. So it was decided that some of the people who have been found guilty, their sentences would be to be transported away from England. Okay, so go and read that. Start answering the questions so that you can correct if there are any grammatical issues, referencing mistakes, so that you can do your best in this first assignment. Okay, all the best of luck.